I watched a PBS special. That's the way it is. I was fascinated, recorded it, went down, copied the whole thing, memorized it, copied all the moves, memorized all the words.
Just his music, his charisma, what drew everyone to him, his personality.
My mother had a lot of Elvis albums, and I sang in church at 4 and 5 years old, and my mother said, "Son, if you're going to sing like somebody, it ought to be like this guy right here." And she threw a stack of Elvis albums in front of me, and I started learning the Elvis songs, and I liked it. It became something that I never stopped doing.
And it's been I guess it was a lifelong thing. I'm a 55-year-old now. I think I've said before, I first liked Ricky Nelson, and when I was a little kid, then I heard Elvis, and that's how I became an Elvis fan. They had a contest of who was the most popular between Elvis and Ricky Nelson, and I didn't know Elvis at the time, being a little kid, and I said Ricky Nelson, not hearing Elvis. And then when I heard Elvis, then instantly I became an Elvis fan.
My older brother liked him, owned a lot of his music, and of course, obviously as kids, we all listened to it as well. And basically that was it.
Let me see. My brother actually, he loved Elvis so much that at 8 years old I started to listen to the music, and I loved it. I loved Elvis. He was a perfect man.
I've been a fan of Elvis since the 70s. I saw Elvis in '77, Kansas City, 3 shows before the last one, and started collecting, and here I am 30 years later.
Just the charisma, seeing him on TV, just kind of blew me away, just the look, and then his voice, of course, is what actually kept drawing me closer and closer. So.
It's an interesting question. I remember the family had some albums bought at Christmas time, the Christmas album and the US mail. Listened to the songs and just was captured by the magic of the man.
Well, it was actually I thought he was kind of cool because the way he acted on stage and the way he loved people, and he was so generous and loving. So I think that kind of drew me to that. I thought that was really cool because I'm nice to people, I love people, but I have to get to know them first before I can I kind of get tense when I talk to people that I don't know. I'm like, yay, hi. That kind of drew me to him because I thought that was really cool.
What drew me to Elvis was his charisma, and he was the absolute greatest in everything. The way he acted, the humanitarian he was, and his music, of course.
Just the love of Elvis. He has such great appeal. I have been, like I said, a fan for all my life. I'm 37 years old, and ever since I can remember, it's just Elvis had just a natural draw to himself.
What drew me to Elvis, I'm a big fan of the 50s Elvis. I love how he danced. He was a very raw act, and I really enjoyed how he could capture a crowd. And I really like all the dancing he did and just the raw power that he had in the 50s, plus with the rest of his career. So I just really think he reached out to a lot of people, and it was really a neat deal.
Well, I just used to sit down and watch movies with my dad all the time. My dad used to watch Elvis movies obsessively, so I just sat down and started watching it with him, and I don't know, just really liked it.
So my sister was a big Elvis fan, probably 5 years before I became an Elvis fan, and she listened to Elvis at home every day, but I mean, it doesn't matter for me. And one day I hear again Suspicious Mind, and Always on My Mind, and I became a real big fan. I don't know why. Elvis came in my life by himself, and so I don't know what's happened, but nobody tried to make me an Elvis fan. Elvis came in my life by himself, so that's why.
Well, how and when? Well, actually, now this is getting more bizarre. Actually, I had a pastor at another church, not for Assembly of God. he prophesied that somebody was going to be singing like Elvis in the Sanctuary. And I was laughing my head off, and I knew it was me. And the reason why I was laughing, because I was really tone deaf and almost completely deaf in my left ear, and I was born that way. And I had to go through many years of speech therapy and to enunciate properly, and I learned how to read lips and stuff. And the Holy Spirit rained upon me and healed my hearing, and that's why I was laughing so hard when I was in the pews. But this senior pastor, like I said about sins, he bare false witness against me, and he made me leave the church. But the Holy Spirit led me to Elvis's old church, First Assembly of God, and now not in Memphis, but in Victorville, California. So now I belong to First Assembly of God in Victorville. And that's another weird coincidence, because I was forced out of one church, and I just had a thought that, well, I want to go to see what denomination Elvis was. So then I found out, and then when I started singing in the pews at First Assembly of God, the choir director came up to me and said, "Oh, do you sing?" I go, "Yeah, audition." So I've been singing there since 2003.
Well, I guess you could say the music in general, the way he presented the music, and of course, being a Presley, you know, I'm drawn to any kind of musical interest.
You know, I don't know. It's one of those things. I saw him on TV, and I just felt a connection there, just between his looks, his sound, I guess his charisma too.
What drew me to Elvis was his voice. I heard "Burning Love," and there was just something in his voice that I've been trying to recreate ever since.
I think it's the purity of the music, and honestly, what I've been told before I even started doing his music was kind of my love for people, the way I kind of like to help everybody and do things was Elvis-like, I guess. So I think that really draws me to him, is he would, you know, buy people cars and do things. I wish I was able to do things like that. So just his good humanitarianism was really what draws me to him.
You know, when I grew up listening to Elvis, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole when I was a kid, and I liked the music, and especially the 50s stuff. That's what we do, the rockabilly stuff, the early stuff. That's my favorite, and that's kind of what got me started on it.
Well, I was brought up in a household of 11 sisters, and after that, you know, you've got to become a fan. You've got no choice, really.
The drama. Elvis, just such a dynamic person, the best looking guy, you know, in the world, and has the most beautiful voice. The voice that was just drifts and floats, and just draws you into it.
Really, I mean, it started off with his movies, but in terms of what the draw factor was I think everything: his voice, his looks, his charisma, you know, the way he carried himself, and then later down the stage, you know, I learned more about him, about his, you know, his heart and how he, you know, gave to people, and the way he was just as a, you know, human being. So, you know, I think everything sort of appealed to me from that point of view.
You know, I think it's just his passion for music, and how he just portrayed you know, how he delivered it. And I thought that was, you know, even as a little kid, it took me over.
What originally drew me to Elvis? His singing. When I was 3 years old, more than anything else, I saw a television documentary when I was 3, and I saw what he was doing. I cleared off our coffee table and started imitating what I was seeing. And it was interesting for someone that never had Elvis in their house, no Elvis records, nothing from my parents. They were not Elvis fans, so it was kind of like my initial exposure to Elvis was through that television show.
As a kid in the '60s, I liked. I mean, I was like a little boy, you know. I liked the movies. That's all we had at the time, and honestly, I just liked watching him fight in the movies. I didn't care about the singing, you know what I'm saying? And it got me interested in the karate thing. I went on to do that as I grew older, and got pretty well into that, real heavy. And then, of course, then I got into. I never really imitated it until I was about 28 years old. I started, and or 27. This is my 24th year of doing it. And I've had the privilege of playing with the Stamps Quartet, Ed Enoch and the Stamps, sang with Elvis many occasions, and I do everything from, I played from Chicago down to Memphis and back and forth, different places. Do a lot of private functions, had a lot of fun doing it.
Since the first time I heard him sing, it was probably about 73. Elvis came on an oldie station, he sang Blue Suede Shoes. I'd never heard of Elvis before. I can remember telling or asking my mom, I said, what was that? She said, that's Elvis. And so I've been a huge Elvis fan ever since.
The love of his music, just the phenomenon that, you know, he had people in the palm of his hand. Live life to the fullest and just put a smile on everybody's face and, you know, make them cry, make them laugh.
For years, I was maybe 7 or 8 since my first ETA show. It was Travis Morris, actually, and like I have a really cute picture of me when I was really young with Travis Morris, and it was so funny.
I don't know. Probably his charisma. There was just something about him that just drew people to him and his music.
Well, I just started listening to his music that night. I stayed up all night and listened to whatever records I could of him. And I had already liked Roy Orbison, and so it just bridged it on with Elvis, and I'm a big Sun Records fan now because of that. It just went on from there, and I grew into liking his 70s stuff as well, and it inspired me to become a musician.
When I was 9 years old, saw that '68 comeback, and my mother got me the album, and that was it. I was a fan since then.
I'll be 47 in 2 months, and I guess from the age of 3 years old up to now, I'm an Elvis fan, and will be until they put me in my resting spot.
Well, I grew up listening to my mum and dad's record collection. They were big fans of country and western. My dad was a huge fan of Elvis. My mum was a fan of a guy who is most famous pop star in the UK, a guy called Cliff Richard, who had minor success here in England, in the US, and that's how I really got into it all, and I just knew from an early age that this is what I wanted to do.
I was about eight years old, living in Columbus, Georgia at the time. That's when I first heard him on the radio. He was doing In a Ghetto, heard Kentucky Rain, Don't Cry Daddy along that time period, and just something struck me about the voice, and never knew what he looked like, and started searching after that, started buying the records, and just became a huge fan after that. So,
I'm a fan of Elvis since I was, I think 6, 7 years old, when Elvis came on television when I was a kid.